Welcome. Sorry. Okay, welcome to episode 2 of the DLO after the show. We're just having some technical difficulties. Well, no, just my computer was being a little dum-dum. I'm Kenny, your host. I do this every single time. I am the co-host, joined by the real brains behind the operation.
Natasha.
Hi guys, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of DLO after the show. We had put out a poll to everyone on the Facebook group as well as on the on Twitter. I'm sounding like an old man on the Twitters, um, and just to see what order you guys wanted us to do the episodes for Signed, Sealed, Delivered. Which, by the way, if this is the first episode you're tuning into for DLO after the show, I'm wondering what the heck it is.
Watch it.
Watch it. Yes, you have to watch the show. Signed, Sealed, Delivered. It is a Hallmark show. It started out as a movie that it was like a backdoor pilot that led to a season 1 series where the episodes were about 45 minutes or so. And then it switched to TV movies, which again, I think, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but I think that the longer length episodes are far better than the 45-minute ones. You just get so much more to flesh out with the characters. All right, so right now, for full transparency, it's 11 p.m. right now. We just got done rewatching the pilot, and we were so jazzed and so excited because we were going to record tomorrow night. But we were like, no, we got to go now. We got to go now. So I ran over, I set up all the equipment, and we got started because, okay, I'll admit right from jump, because we started watching the Backdoor pilot, to get going. That's what the poll. Once we put the poll out there, everyone was like, "No, just start from the beginning." Save for and also both of us are going to be yawning throughout this episode. No, it's okay. Both of us are going to be yawning throughout this episode because it is a little late. But we put the poll out there, and everyone was saying, "You guys should really start from the very beginning. Save for in December." Throw in the Christmas Signed, Sealed, Delivered for Christmas, which we totally agree. So that's what we're doing. We started from as the Sound of Music said, let's start from the very beginning, and we did. And I'm so happy that's really hot tea. I'm so happy that we actually did because I'll admit I forgot a lot of the plot lines from from the initial movie, and so it was like we were watching it for the first time again, except for we started remembering little bits and pieces, and I remember just why we fell in love with the show immediately. I mean, the writing for the show, and then the way that the main actors portray the characters of Oliver, Shane, Norman, and Rita. The way they portray their characters, you instantly fall in love with these characters. That's one of the beautiful parts about this show is we tried to save a lot of this, and that's another reason why we were doing the show tonight, because we started talking about it. We're like, we need to do it on air, not because we'll forget our point. The way that each one of these characters interact at the very beginning, you don't find shows like that to where they instantly click, they instantly have chemistry, and
not only that, but they usually with pilots or first episodes or whatever, you're not usually immediately drawn in to maybe one character or so, but not a whole group. Not like this. You just want to watch it. You don't want to end.
And also something being that I've watched a lot of serialized TV, you'll notice whenever it comes to no, you're fine. You'll notice whenever it comes to ensemble casts, a lot of times they'll start a show with the pilot and test the audience will be like, I love all the characters except that one. Like recent one that comes to mind was the show with Zooey Deschanel, The New Girl. They started out with 3 roommates, and we watched the pilot, and then shortly thereafter, whenever the series started, we're like, wait a minute, where'd he go? And they just replaced him, and they didn't speak of it. But so with this show, now I think I can't remember what happens to the character, but I think there might be one character that got that treatment, which we'll get to in a little bit. Her name is Andrea. Anyone that remembers Andrea in the show or in the pilot, again, we'll get to that in a little bit. But with these characters, again, everything just lines up perfectly from their introductions, the way they interact, their characteristics. There's even hints of what was going to happen in the present movies that are coming out right now, even all the way back in the first episode.
Yep.
There's so many little nuances and little Easter eggs that just carry through every single, every single storyline all the way through till To the Altar, which was at this point, hopefully, fingers crossed, was the most recent and not last, please renew, episode or part of the story. But let's go ahead and dive right at the very, very beginning.
Let's start by saying that Yoo-hoo is disgusting.
Yes, Yoo-hoo is now, and this is coming from someone that used to like a nice ice cold Yoo-hoo. I grew up in Florida. That was something that you would find in the vending machines, and they would have them just in the can form. But hindsight, I'm thinking back, and I'm like, I just couldn't.
I'm from Canada. I came down. We're newly married. So much stuff is different down here. We'd gone to probably Walmart, did some grocery shopping. You wanted Yoo-hoo. I was like, what is that? And it looks like a chocolate drink. Can't be too harmful.
Right?
Until you take a sip.
Yeah.
I have never regretted a sip of anything more than well, maybe not. Okay, maybe not quite that, but
it was close.
Oh.
It's up in the top 5 at the very least.
It's like watered down quick powder.
Oh my god, that's really, really gross. How dare you?
Wait, do you guys have quick
Oh,
powder?
yes. Oh,
you
yes.
remember the
with
metal
dumb
cans
little
with
rabbit
and the metal can with the lid you had to pop off with a knife?
that I've cut myself way too many times to count on those things. That's bringing
Anyways,
up some that's chocolate PTSD, if that's even a thing. But going back to the beginning, other than Yoo-hoo, which Eric Mabius, who plays Oliver O'Toole, I've read that he's not that big of a fan of Yoo-hoo, and that's really sad that they kind of forced him to have to even come close to putting it close to his lips. And I don't know whether that Hallmark got a little sponsorship or a little kickback from Yoo-hoo or something like that. But
if you notice, that's the only brand name thing in the show. Everything else, like her laptop has stickers on it. Everything has. Yeah.
I might have to do some digging into that. The show starts out at the very beginning with Oliver doing his voiceover, which there's something about his character that, at least Eric Mabius' delivery of those monologues are great. And again, the writing is stellar. The tone has changed from the pilot all the way up to now, but even so, I mean, there was a hint of a little bit more playfulness, I think, in Oliver's character at the very, very beginning, as comparison to now.
Yes.
He's a little bit more straight-laced.
Yes, I totally agree.
It's almost as if he started out, willing to bend the rules just slightly, and then it's grown to where she's having to get him back to the point of the pilot. She's having to get him to, come out of his shell a little bit more again.
Maybe, but if you look at it, where they are now and what they do now, in a way, they're still, they still go out, they still do things. So technically, she's pushing him more.
True. Okay, I can see that. Yeah. This is one of those moments. It's a nice meet cute where they're in line at the little coffee hut, and they banter back and forth and whatnot, and then they use that later on. Once in their formal introduction, there's already some immediate inside jokes, but their characters instantly, to me, their characters were instantly, they had the chemistry right from jump.
Absolutely.
We're also introduced to Andrea, the supervisor, who is essentially the villain of the show. That's one thing that I like about Signed, Sealed, Delivered is there's no antagonist. There's no villain per se. I mean, in the pilot movie, you did have she was the character that you really just did not like, obviously for obvious reasons. Frankly, if I ever had to deal with a supervisor like that, I would quit in a heartbeat. So I think that's like the only character really that had that type of. Of course, we're going to be going through the rest of the series, but I just don't remember another character that I really loathed so much. And the actress that plays Andrea, her name is Daphne Zuniga. As well, she also was just a little nerditry here. She was the Princess Vespa in Spaceballs, one of my all-time favorite flicks. You didn't like her. There was there was really nothing about her character that I liked at all. But then we're introduced to the main four: Rita, Norman, and we've already met Oliver and Shane.
Yep.
But we get to see them interact together for the first time. Just kind of zooming through some of this really quick. I love how you still see, for the most part, each one of those characters are still true to that core from the first episode. Norman's quirky, little, he's odd, makes, real straight-laced jokes that everyone's just like, oh, okay. Rita is the sweetheart, but she, again, I love the photographic memory that they essentially use as human Google. And then, of course, Oliver I think he monologued more in the earlier episodes than he does now. I mean, because and he was a little bit more animated with it while he's walking around, and he has his nice little his tool set where he's figuring out which one he wants to use to open up the letter, and it was almost like it was like sport hunting for him. But something that you and I were talking about though was, and I think I was going to get into this a little bit later, but it seems appropriate right now, is the way that how do I word it? It's that's
I don't know, but if you don't say something, I can't help you.
I love you. How before Shane showed up, before the character Shane shows up, Norman, Rita, Oliver, they were an incredibly efficient team. In the dead letter office, they had a process. They didn't have computers to rely on, so they had phone books and all. Rita's memory and the tenacity of Oliver, but they were more like clinical. But when Shane showed up,
very straight-laced by the book.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's no
deviation.
Yeah, no deviation, no emotion. Let's just get our job done and move on to the next one. And then when Shane came in, she brought heart. She brought emotion. She brought the human factor to it, and really kind of, it's almost as if you had this robot that was incredibly efficient, but then you put in like an emotion chip in, and all of a sudden it now has compassion, and obviously the way they work, they're able to accomplish their jobs even better. So I think that was just that right out the gate was something else that was really, really good. But I like how, speaking of the heart, I like, one of the notes that I put down was how Shane was instantly invested in the letter. She wanted to go with the story versus the actual, all right, well, we need to find an address, we need to find this, find that.
People.
Yes, the people aspect.
If you follow through the show, that's one of the things that she always and has never lost, and I'm glad, is that she's the one who had an immediate connection with the person behind the letter who wrote it and how it might affect their lives, because there were multiple letters that involved, saving someone's life, or, someone might be in danger, and like this one, someone might have died or whatever. So yeah, that's one of the things that I really like about her.
And also, just a quick disclaimer: this movie came out in 2013. Spoilers. So if you haven't watched the episode yet, pause it. No, pause it right now. Oh, wait, you know what? Don't. Not that they can see me if it's paused, but if you haven't paused it yet, you need to pause it. Go watch the episode, then come back. So pause. Welcome back. So now that you're all brought up to speed, we can continue. So with once they start reading the letter, we start going into the flashback aspect of it. First of all, let me just say that the two actors that are in the mystery portion of the show, you have what's his name, Ben Hollingsworth plays Charlie. And then the actress that plays Kelly is Lacey J. Maley, who is now on what was that? She's on another Hallmark.
You said Chesapeake Bay.
Chesapeake Shores.
Shores.
Yeah, she's on Chesapeake Shores now. And
place.
And Chesapeake Shores is real in my heart. Not that I've watched an episode yet, which I've been told I need to though. So it's late. Forgive me. So
yeah, you're getting so animated. You're gonna shake
shaking the
camera
camera
right off the box.
So I the actors again, Ben Hollingsworth and Lacey J. Maley, was it? Yes, they are another set that had great chemistry in that elevator right from the beginning.
Absolutely.
So their story revolves around two strangers that meet. They have their own little meet cute in the elevator of an office building where he works, and she's there for reasons.
Dealing with three jerks.
Yes, dealing with three.
One in particular,
but
his boss.
But his buddies were laughing and joking.
Yeah,
They're like,
true.
"Yeah, bro."
Yeah.
And he worked for a terrible boss, and his boss had his little cronies. And she automatically has that one spark where she kind of just defends him right out the gate.
Yeah.
He goes in, he quits his job, and they have an amazing day together. Making memories, but she's very coy. She doesn't want to give last names. She doesn't want to know about email addresses, Twitter accounts, nothing. She just wants to live in that moment. And based on the way the show starts out, where you see the letter get lost, which, by the way, that mother who's on the phone, she needs to pay attention to her kid, and that kid needs to not almost run out in the middle of traffic just to get a letter, just to put gum on it, just to send it flying with balloons. That kid, he needs a timeout.
We also add here that if a letter was sent up in the sky with balloons a year later, it's not going to look like the day it was on the ground.
No, it's not. It's not. That thing's going to be so weathered, and I mean,
that's actually something that's gotten better with time with the show. If you think about it, like if you look at that, the letter literally looked like it did when it was on the ground, but now they weather it.
That's a very good point. So the letter disappears for a year. Come to find out that actually from the very beginning, she says that she doesn't have a lot of time. That she has some health issues, that she's dying. So they have this whimsical day, and he ends up getting hit by a jogger when she pushes him to swing across a creek. I know that in any other setting, that whole sentence would make no sense.
She didn't push him. Push him. I thought you meant physically.
Oh, no. Well, that would have been funny, though. But she's taking pictures the whole entire time. And but then they part ways, and you realize that she's writing him a letter because they had made promises not to go past that one day.
Yes, that was the whole stipulation. Because they had, after he quit his job, he asked her to have bagels with her, which is part of the whole thing that happened in the elevator. But after they were done, he wanted to do more with her. So her stipulation was, we can do anything today, but reveal no last names and nothing from their personal lives.
Yes. So very, very hopeless romantic type of situation. And she went to go send the letter. The taxi driver, he was like, I'm just going to put this in my jacket pocket. It looked like a member's jacket. It doesn't have inside pockets. And it just fell on the ground. And then this, when the little kid picked it up and gave it the up treatment. So once they start opening up that letter and Oliver starts reading it, Oliver even is feeling kind of distraught. You can tell that it's hitting him at an emotional level, but he's also fighting with that. I need to be by the book. Shane's like, I'm going to burn your book because we need to figure out what's going on. And this is something that actually I made a note about as well. When Shane starts talking about love and have you ever loved somebody and wouldn't you want to be able to get this through, there's a scene where Rita, played by Crystal Lowe, she's like, she has this really small, tragic moment where she's talking about how she's never felt love, and then she corrects herself, well, not any love back in my direction when it's at the same time. And then she kind of just shuts herself up and kind of just shoves it deep down. And I was like, right out for a character that is just always so happy and, bouncing around and, again, very chipper and by the book, that was a very, very tragic moment in my eyes for her as a character. And again, Crystal Lowe played that part perfectly. And then I also like how Norman, he's just like, I read a book about love and the way it affects baboons. And then Shane's like, bring that in tomorrow. Like, I don't know why you threw that in there. So that part was really, really good. But then, they start going through and Shane keeps on encouraging him, Oliver, to continue reading more and more so that they can try to figure out where the letter was supposed to go. Sorry, were you going to say?
Yep.
Okay.
Just
so,
listen.
and then after that, they decide that they're going to go ahead and go to the postal bar. And that's where they start having, having some conversations about the letter and whatnot. Something that I wonder is what happened to the postal bar. Now they have, it was like a nondescript, no name postal bar where they had a bunch of postcards all over the place, and everyone was still in their postal gear, their uniforms and whatnot. And now of course now they go to the Mailbox Grill, but it's like you have to forgive me. I don't remember from the very beginning, first couple episodes. So I don't know whether or not they decided to migrate over and move. I don't know if it just got demolished, and they're like, we're just gonna go ahead and go to this upscale restaurant where anyone can go, but it's kind of our own place.
I could have swore that was in one of the, not the last episodes, but not that long ago.
Well, Die Hard Postables, with you watching this, if we're totally getting this mixed up and messed up, we've been through a lot over the last 4.5 years, so please bear with us. We're getting ourselves back up to speed, hence all of the rewatches. So, anyway, they're going there, and this was also one of those times where Oliver got to have a little bit more of his snark with, like, whenever Shane would say something, there was one line that we just started cracking up at. She mentions that she could do something. He goes, "Oh, happy day." There are several moments that Oliver had. There's so many little one-liners that Oliver has that makes me laugh. But again, with the next scene, they're going on. They're venturing outside of the DLO office, and Oliver is wearing a hat that he was wearing at the very beginning. Whatever happened to that character, to his character's hat as well? I don't know. This is just a small little thing, but it's like that seemed like it was really part of his character. Maybe they just wrote it out. I mean, it's probably not really important at all. It's just something that was just a weird little thing that I just noticed. I'm weird.
The hat?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Was it only on the first episode?
I think so.
I know that it caused hair problems in the first scene.
Yes, the first scene.
And when they're at the coffee
hut, yeah,
his hair is not.
It's kind of like Norman's in the first episode for a little bit. I mean, it's kind of bushy, but then when they're back at the DLO, it's he's back
Dull.
to his
Not slicked down like
No.
it is now.
no. It's styled like a normal human being instead of what the current fashion is, where hair is just like overly gelled. We're getting back to the '80s a little bit, I think.
No, his hair doesn't look like it was gelled. It just looks like it was gelled. Like it. It's not like crunchy and shiny.
Right, yeah.
It just is like perfectly in place.
It's like Lego hair.
Always. Yes,
He
exactly.
had Lego hair. But the thing is, again, going back to how they write the characters and everything, I really, really like how Shane pushes the envelope for the DLO office, even though she doesn't even want to be there. She's trying to get a transfer out. But there was one line where she's talking about, wanting to go and pursue getting the letter to Ben, or his name, to Charlie. And Oliver says, "You're breaking the rules," and she replies, "Well, you're breaking my heart." I love that line. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good writing. Martha Williamson, she did a really good job on that.
I think that one of my favorite things about this whole episode was the mutual exasperation with each other.
Yes, that is something that I think has carried through, but it was like so imminent in the early days. Evident in the early days.
Well, now, when they're exasperated with each other, well, now especially, but before they were, well, spoilers. Anyway, so
Those that know what we're talking about.
but it was, there was always this after the first episode, or till we got in a few episodes, there's always been this undercurrent of attraction between the two of them.
The classic will they, won't they?
The first episode, it was just sheer exasperation with each other.
It was very much childhood. We like each other instantly, but we're going to be slightly mean to each other, or snarky, or act like we get frustrated. But actually, no, you know what? Never mind. No, they really did get annoyed with each other at the very beginning.
I don't know. When they're dancing, there was obviously something there, but just up to that point in the episode, I don't think that there was any attraction. He was wearing his wedding ring. She didn't know his story.
That's a very good
She
point.
had her own issues with not wanting to be there and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it more so, and one of the reasons that I liked it so much was that it was almost like, even though they were complete strangers, that it felt like friends who were bickering.
Yes.
Just going back and forth each other. Nothing meant by anything they were saying. Just this back and forth that would happen throughout the show.
Yeah.
And I really love that.
It was really, really good. And I think that, again, they did a really great job getting these characters to really have a connection from the first minute the show starts.
Yeah.
So as it's going on, I really do also let's talk about and I'm gonna butcher his name, and I know I'm trying to get him on the show anyway, but Jeff Gustafson, Norman. Okay, huge credit to Jeff for his facial expressions, because there are so many like inquisitive or completely not understanding.
I would say his face said it all, but as I pointed out to you a couple times, he's in the background of a shot, and
it's
his
blurry. He's
body
even blurry.
is reacting to what is going on. And it's so subtle but animated all at the same time.
So I can't agree with you more, because that, like, and again, there's sometimes where they'll step out of slightly out of focus, and you can't see the facial expression, but you see kind of like a shoulder shrug or his shoulder. I can't say that word. Shoulders will drop, and he'll kind of just look off to the side, like, what did I do?
Well, the one scene that I was telling you about where Shane is getting at Oliver a little bit, trying to make her point and drilling it home with what she's saying. And he just takes this deep breath, and you watch him in the background as his body like moves over towards where Rita's standing next to him, like he's like a, oh my goodness, she's going there. What's going to happen next?
Yes.
Type of thing.
And there's and again he has the I know the Postables have come up with something a hashtag even recently that Normanisms, just little things that that he says like there's one throwaway line where she's like have you ever been been in prison, and he's like I've been in prison once, and he starts rattling off going and visiting a cousin but when Shane says that she quits in this episode and walks out, and Oliver looks incredibly distraught, which Eric Mabius did that amazing. I mean, his arms locked in a certain way, and he's like almost like he doesn't, everything's off kilter, and he doesn't know what do I do with my hands, and he's just completely lost.
I think that's one of the things that won it for me when it came to this show, along with everything else that we've mentioned, is I don't think there is anything he didn't do perfectly in this episode. Like, I genuinely, whether it was the monologues, whether it was one of the things I love about him is the little smirks he gives when he's like walking away from Shane and she can't see his face, and he either knows he's pushed her buttons or irritated her, or he said something opposite of how he actually feels. The little thing he does with the corners of his mouth.
And just knowing the character, I can hear the inner monologue. Oliver, you old man, I got her. He's like he was. Those smirks are him being incredibly proud of himself for whether it's pushing buttons or I got one over on them. I'm good. But there's that scene when Shane's leaving and Oliver, he locks up and he's. I love the line. He goes, "How many vacation days do I have?" And Rita's like, 6 weeks and 2 days. He goes, I'm going to take a few minutes of those right now. That was such a great little tiny line. But when he leaves and Rita said, "Oh," and Norman being clueless, he's like, "What?" And she's like, "He's going after her." And the line that he throws out is a great Normanism. He's going after her what?
This is why he's good at talking about movies, because he can remember like everything. And I'm like, no, I remember moments. Mm-hmm. I remember certain things that are said. You're like quoting lines here.
Yes. Well, now, and it also does help that I did take a few notes. But
yes, but I don't see any of what you just said on there.
Well, I do try. But then once we get to a certain spot in the letters, or in the letter, you come to find out that, again, spoilers.
So if you haven't watched it and you want to watch it and you don't want to find out what's happened, bye.
Pause. And welcome back again. Okay, so you come to find out that Charlie has been accused of murder and he's been in prison.
For the year.
Now, let's walk back just a few moments because you find this out after Shane quit, and this leads to a very, very cute scene where Shane is walking up to the house that she learned about where it was through the letter. Mm-hmm. She's walking up to Charlie's house, and she's standing in front looking at the house. And as she walks into the frame, you see a beautiful Jaguar in the back with Oliver leaned up against it holding 2 cups of coffee.
I have to say, I think that's one of my favorite shots from the whole series ever.
I tweeted this picture tonight, and I said, this is the shot that made me fall in love with the show. I mean, I was hooked because it was just classy. I mean, he's sitting there. That's something that needs to be. I'm actually very well may take that shot, do a screenshot, and make it black and white and make that like a banner image or something, because I think that is a classic. It's a classic shot from the show.
it's the show in a picture.
It really, really
Like,
is.
genuinely, it's the show in a picture.
Oliver's just overwatching, waiting for her to come around. See what I did there? And he's waiting there with coffee, and and even it carries over even a little bit into the scene because she just wants to see the letter delivered, and once it gets picked up by the neighbor, she's breaking protocol, and Oliver is completely and totally helpless to do anything to stop it.
He just sort of like, what
are you doing? So you come to find out that Charlie is in prison now. And if my camera falls over, it's because my cat just came downstairs. Okay, so I'm back. So Charlie's been accused of murder, and so now they're like, hey, wait a minute. He was with Kelly all day. We need to get this information to him. Well, I want to give a humongous shout out to the makeup department for this episode, and I had her name and then I lost it. It's Stephanie something or other.
No, it's on your.
Oh, is it on here? Did I put it on there?
Put in.
Oh, look at that. Yes, Stephanie Hamilton. Okay, Stephanie Hamilton was the makeup artist for this episode, and the dark rings that they put under Ben Hollingsworth's eyes, how his face looked sunken in and like he's been through something, was beautiful, and it was done perfectly. So big kudos to Stephanie on that one. But he gets the letter and he realizes that she's that she was waiting for him, and but he now knows why she didn't want to tell him face to face. And then they're like, okay, well, we got to find her. And then Shane whips open her laptop.
Wait. Let's back up.
Back up.
To them going into the prison.
Oh, right.
This is my small issue with the show. Her opening her laptop and hacking websites in like 30 seconds or less.
I want to know what Shane's hacker name is. I mean, it's got to be something, postal related. So I don't know, but it's her hacker name is Mailer Damon. Oh my goodness, that's it. Boom. Okay, sorry. For those that are in the tech world, web world, you'll get that, and you're chuckling. But so she's sitting there, and that's the small little nitpick with this. They're at a jail. They have a corrections officer at the gate.
Okay, they call it a county jail. This looks more like a prison, not a jail.
Like a federal prison. So he's sitting there, and he's like. So he goes, "Are you here?" They're like, "Yeah, we're the attorneys for Charlie." And
I don't think did they say attorney?
Yeah. Because remember he after he's like, "I don't see your name on the roster for today," and she goes, "Oh well." Shane says, "Yes," and I'm doing a whole entire scene. Shane says, "Oh well, you sure? I put it on there yesterday," and he's like, "You would have had to have put it on last Thursday." She's like, "I meant last Thursday." Okay, so. You're a really dumb correctional officer if you're not like, huh? And
you're the security guard.
And then she's like, so last Thursday on the roster, you say? She opens up her laptop, starts typing. The vantage point that he's at, he can see her screen. But he's just like, yeah, last Thursday. And she's like.
And then they start talking about, as she's madly typing, what a nice day it is. And
he's like, yeah, it is a nice day, because you're not holding up traffic to get into the federal prison county jail. And they're sitting there typing. And she's like, can you check that again? And he's like, I'll refresh it. Oh, look, there you are. But it doesn't say that you're the attorney on file. And he's like, oh, well, he's... was he? Did they say he was demoted or he was indisposed or something like that? Oh, he was sick or something.
Sick from eating the sandwiches from his
right.
favorite sandwich shop.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, well, he does like his sandwiches. Oh, go on, and lets them into the.
Actually, he said deli meats, not sandwiches.
Okay, well,
see, I remember something. Just enough to correct him.
So they let him. Mailer Damon hacks the Gibson, and she gets in there, and they do a little social engineering, and they go in and probably break like 3 or 4 federal laws.
I don't understand how at that because they're in the room with him, talking with him, how they would let her have a laptop.
Yes.
Not to mention the fact.
Well, but if they're posing as his attorneys,
Okay. You really think they'd still let a?
probably legal pad. Yeah,
That's not gonna do any good. But the other thing is she's sitting like this, laptop in front of her, over this shoulder, looking through the window, is an officer staring at them.
Hey, wait a second! They're not doing anything legal. But you know what? They said that they're his attorney, so
Okay.
I guess.
Carry on with the story now that
Sorry, we're nitpicking. But
that
it's
is
okay.
that is my only complaint with the entire show.
Which-
like literally.
And it's not quite like NCIS enhance and let's have 4 people typing on the same keyboard at the same time. There's it moves the story along, which is perfectly fine. But they, she's doing a search for Kelly, and they look at the clinical trials, and it says that none of the people that went through these clinical trials for Hodgkin's survived. So instantly they feel that, well, that's it. Kelly passed away. There's no, the pictures that you took that would exonerate him, those are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm done. I'm going to jail for a long time. So, and that's another thing. He was being accused of murdering a lotto winner,
Which also fits into the story, but it would take a really long time to explain everything that we're talking about.
Yeah, so which I do like how it buttoned up that just for some weird coincidence he ended up running into a guy that was already premeditated going to murder his cousin. And hey, look, I just so happen to have someone else's wallet that I can drop at the scene.
Yeah,
very, very convenient. Except for they actually imply that he pickpocketed.
that's what the picture looks like.
Yeah, it looks like he grabbed his wallet. So, this guy was just a lowlife in general. But so they go through, and through some conversations that they have, Shane realizes that the letter was actually had clues in it, trying to make it to where Charlie could actually find a website that Kelly put together
Which
with
they
all the
also
pictures.
talked about on the day that, because he had said,
So when's the Shane and Kelly website coming
yes,
out?
not
And
Shane.
Charlie. Oh, it's 11:42. We need to go to bed. Anyway, so they realize that there's a website. The website has it. They take it to his public defender, who is scumbag.
Low life.
That was the word I was going to actually use. Both. And there's a really, really cool scene where they're on the golf course, and
I love it.
they're driving through. Which I'm going to have interviews with. I know at least 3 of the 4 of the main actors, and I'm going to ask them if they remember that golf cart ride, because Kristen Booth, Crystal Lowe, and Jeff look terrified with Eric Mabius' driving.
Mostly. Rita and Norman. Sorry, it's too late.
It is. They're riding in the very back, and they look absolutely
There's
terrified.
one time where he's holding on to the side, and he's like,
He just kind of scooches down. So they stop, and they get the attorney all the evidence. And he's still being a little bit of a jerk to him. But then Oliver, he breaks protocol and lays down a little bit of a threat to the steaks that the man ordered, which were really, really important. They better be really good steaks. But then when they get back into the golf cart, they're all like, it's like, yeah, we're the boss. They get in.
they just all turn around, get in the cart.
Except for Norman. Norman keeps eye contact with him, and he just kind of backs away like, try me.
Backs up
Try
to
me.
the
Golf
backs
cart.
up to the back of the golf cart. holds onto the side, steps on, and
taps the
top.
and then instead of driving forward, they just kind of just slink backwards back behind a tree, and then they're gone. But everything comes full circle. They help solve the crime. And actually, they had just found out prior that the DLO office was going to be shut down because
of Grouchy Woman.
Because Grouchy Andrea did not want, or she essentially got them in trouble because neither Shane nor Oliver showed up for the staff meeting or the department head meetings. Which, now that I think about it, why was she asking for Shane to be at the department head meeting when she had only been there for 3 or 4 days, when Rita and Norman had been there for a lot longer than that? You would think that they would throw someone in on their second day into a department head meeting.
That's not how jobs work.
Right.
No, that's not how jobs work.
I guess. Wait, but
one is a mail sorter, one is the address finder.
Right. Wait.
She's not going to want either of them in a department head meeting when Shane is there for a high position that she's supposed to be.
I guess that makes sense. It does. But
because she automatically sort of slides into right underneath of Oliver.
This is a very good point.
From the very beginning.
This is very,
and
very
it never
true.
changes.
Ever. Sometimes she is like, no, I'm above. They think that after this, this case is closed, Charlie gets out of jail, and then he asked them to come with him to the bridge where him and Kelly were supposed to meet a year later, which so happens to be that day. And they part ways and they start walking off, and there was another scene right there where Oliver and Shane were talking to Charlie, and Rita says to Norman, she's like, "Hey, let's go feed the birds," and he's like, "Oh, I'm good," and she's like, "Norman," and he's like, "Oh," and then you see them completely out of focus, but you see Rita like mouthing something to Norman, and he's just like. So again, the acting on that was perfect, and the body language was great, and you could even see back then that the body language was there's going to be something between those two as well, between Rita and Norman. But at the very end of the episode, they're standing there, and then all of a sudden, what?
Just see it. That's what she was talking about.
Wait, what do you mean?
When she was talking about not getting love at the same time she loves someone else.
Wait a second. Okay. Is that what she was implying? That
she looked over at him and she looked like, like Rita does, like this, and just sort of looked up and then looked back and adjusted her glasses. And then that's why she petered out, because he was looking right at her while she was talking.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the prime example of how I never catch signals. It's a wonder that we're married, because I am Norman in that moment, because I did not catch that at all.
There were all sorts of moments through the whole show.
Well, I think that I caught those, but that subtle one, that one was like way too subtle. The other ones I feel like was like someone tossing a pebble out a window. That one for me was more like someone going, because it just.
No,
right
that
over.
was the biggest. That was the biggest one.
You're just saying that for the show.
No, I'm not.
That was the biggest one?
Yes.
Well, as they used to say, shut my mouth wide open, because I didn't. Now I'm gonna have to go rewatch it and be like, I'm gonna sit there like studying, like maybe that's like algebra to me. Anyway, so. I really missed that. So anyway, you come to find out that Kelly's alive. Everything's all happy. They're joyous, and you can see them in the background, and you can tell that instantly they're on a great track. And
she's sewing his button on.
Yeah, she's sewing his button on,
which you'll also understand.
Yeah, with the needle and thread that Oliver gave him.
Yes.
And then they get back to the office. And you realize that the DLO office is actually going to stay open because they solved a crime, and their superiors were really impressed, and they reopened it. Excuse me. So There's a scene again where you find out that Shane, the transfer that she put into, because they got some clout now, it jumped um, her transfer request to the top of the pile, and they're like,
From 10 weeks.
10 weeks to 2 hours.
That's a big jump.
That's a big old jump. So she's like, I need to go grab a cup of coffee, and she leaves, and Oliver has that look on his face again of, wow.
It was not just like that.
Well,
There was poignancy to it.
what the whole coffee
Yes.
comment? Oh, well, yeah.
Because she needed to decide. No, well, yeah, nothing.
Wait, because she needed to what?
Just make up her mind.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, yeah.
That's why Oliver reacted like he did. Did you miss that too?
I did. Now, I thought Oliver was just upset because she was just leaving. Like, he thought that she was gone. And the way I took it was...
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so,
But,
I did
but
miss it.
her intonation and hesitation and, oh, crap, what am I going to do? That was I need to go get a cup of coffee. And she said,
I got that, yeah.
Did she say, and not this swill?
Yeah. She goes, good coffee.
Oh, good coffee.
Like
right,
that.
right,
So,
right.
To me, I thought that Oliver was like, wow, she just is leaving and dissing us at the same time.
Oh,
a little bit.
No, that was, no.
So
I don't think
but the look on his face, though, he's sitting there, and obviously he's a little devastated because they all felt that they worked really, really well together. I think our cat is wanting to weigh in a little bit on the show as well. Either that or just is telling us to shut up so he can go to bed. But she's out in line, and there's a little bit of a subplot where she's talking about how she never got to reconcile with her father, and a letter that went missing. She didn't know that she was getting a card. Ended up in the DLO, and Rita got it to her, and she wasn't going to open it, but she finally opens it and realizes that there was a reconciliation in the letter, and that that kind of drew everything together in this for the plot line. And once they got back, she comes back with coffees for everybody, and right over the closing shot of them all in their different stations, and they're everyone's happy, everything's great. Oliver gives one last monologue for the episode, and then the episode's done, which I also find funny that there was that little disclaimer at the very end saying, "This isn't really how the post office works."
Did they have to do it after that episode?
I think so, because
I certainly haven't recently.
And they were like, so that's don't expect that from the post office, and it's a federal crime for anyone to impersonate a federal postal worker.
No, post office investigator.
Post office investigator. So, but I think with that, when we hit stop on this episode during the credits, I was like, this is why we love this show. Because
this is a part of my happy bubble.
Yeah, we need happy bubble T-shirts.
Oh, thank you for the T-shirt, by the way.
Yes. Oh, yes. Speaking of which, this is right here. This was a gift sent to us by fellow Postables. Thank you so very much. We wear them proudly. And this show at the very end when we pressed stop, I was I'm just very, very glad we stumbled upon it. And I remember us saying, "Oh, this really needs to go to a series." We were like, we wish there was more, because at the time it was just a movie. We didn't know it was going to be a series, but then all of a sudden it's a series, and we're just like, best decision ever. So again, to Hallmark, to the actors, Eric, Crystal, Kristen, and Jeff, to Martha, the writer, thank you so much for an amazing show with amazing fans. It's the shirt says "What a Family," and I know that's one of the Postables hashtags as well. So big shout out to the Postables, and we are really, really glad that you guys have shown us such a great reception for this show, and we look forward to making many more episodes and having many more discussions. Was there anything else you would like to add, babe?
I don't think so. Let me look at my notes really quick.
She's going to look at her notes really quick. Let me just give you guys a little bit of information. We will have a Twitter. Well, actually, we do have a Twitter account for this show that we're going to start using as well. Was there something else you wanted to add?
Oh, I had written down. Oh, oh, sorry, excuse me. When Shane had first gotten there, and he was picking letters, and Shane was in the middle of saying something, and Norman said, "Shh,
It's
happening."
There was so much gravitas with the shh. It's happening,
and everything went quiet. Well, he did his thing.
There was reverence to the Oliver show there.
And the only other thing I wrote down is that one of the reasons we were finished watching it. No, I actually might have written it halfway through. That it reminded me why we love this show. Mm-hmm. We were laughing. We were really enjoying it. And it was nice to be able to sit down and have something light. There was nothing dark about it. Yes, there's sadness throughout several of them, but I don't know. It's something that's here, you know?
It has heart.
Yeah.
It has heart. It's a very earnest show. It's
magical.
It's very magical. There is a lot of whimsy to it too. So if we can endorse having the show renewed, Hallmark, please hear the fans cry, because this is something that brings a lot of joy. It brings it brings people together, and I think that it also helps something that Tash and I have talked about many times is for people that may not have any form of faith or any type of religion, higher power they look to. I think this show also helps kind of bridge that gap a little bit, mm-hmm. and making it to where it's real there's some form of reality for people.
I will say that later on in the show, particularly the Christmas one, obviously.
Can't wait for that one.
But to the last, probably 5. I would say 4. No, 4. The last 4 movies had a lot more religious connotations to it. Mm-hmm. But it was never overwhelming. It was. That's why I felt like I agree with you that it bridged those gaps. Because at first, Shane was obviously not a religious person. Oliver is. But even as she shifts a little bit throughout the show, it never. I don't know. It still felt like you didn't have to believe the same. You didn't push anyone away who didn't believe the same. I don't know. It just was that bridge. Yeah, like, I don't know.
It brings you in, and it makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Regardless of your beliefs.
Yeah, regardless of your beliefs. It's not something that, because I know that there are some shows that will, it's almost as if they're like, we really need to have this message in there, so we're going to essentially force it into the story. I think the way that this has been written by Martha Williamson is that to where it's seamless, mm-hmm. and it doesn't feel like here we're gonna have the story, but really while we're having the story, pay no attention to this thing that I'm putting up beside me right now. That's kind of just right next to my face. It's not that's totally not part of the plot. Except for I'm going to look at it now. I'm going to say to boldly go where no man has gone before on this mug here, and then it's just going to go ahead and go out of the storyline. Then it's going to make its way back in a little bit later on. That's kind of how a lot some shows will put overt message, whether it be religious, whether it be anti whatever is needs to be anti that day. There are shows where the writers will write that stuff in, and it feels completely out of place, like someone dropped a pan. With this show, I feel that they have written in not just the occasional religious message, but also just a message of positivity.
Well, and humanity and empathy. And I think that's everything this world is sorely lacking.
The empathy aspect of it is, that because a lot of the show deals, a lot of the stories deal with reconciliation.
Yes.
So whether people are angry at each other, or whether there was love lost, or whether there was a disconnect.
I also like the real world aspect of it because not everything always gets tied up like your brain in a story form would think it should be.
Yeah, so most of the time you're like, okay, well, you have the standard formula of introduction, issue, plot, sour spot in the story, redemption, closure, and everything is always buttoned up nice and neat.
Well, no, not only that though, but with letters, parcels, whatever gets lost, it's not the formula of boy meets girl, they fall in love, they get married. Sometimes at the end, it's not what you thought would be as you follow the package or wherever the Postables have gone to look for answers to find out where to take everything or whatever. It's refreshing because it's not predictable.
Yeah.
And it's very real. It deals with some hard issues.
Well, I mean, just one of the most recent episodes was dealing with domestic abuse, or at least, or well, not necessarily domestic abuse, but they were the one with Jamie Lynn Siegler, right before To the Altar. You've dealt with. I mean, the first episode starts with.
Wait, we thought domestic.
Yeah. Sorry, we thought.
Yeah.
And with the implication of that, though,
I thought I missed something.
It really made it like, this is what she's fleeing. This is, she's running scared. All these different things. But the first episode dealt with possible murder.
And the very last one, to the altar,
yeah,
dealt with mental health.
Yes. Which is something that is not talked about nearly enough in this country. So having that topic put on Front Street was bold, but again, it was handled perfectly, in my opinion.
There are some, by the time I'm done, I'm a mess.
So
you even got teary for some of them.
Yes, I will admit I did get teary with actually a lot of these episodes. So. Again, thank you to everyone involved, cast, crew, for making such a wonderful show. So I think that with that, I think that's a good place to put a little button on it. See what I did there? Yeah, brought it full circle. So just really quick, just to get some business out of the way, we have the Twitter account, like I was speaking earlier. We have a Twitter account for the show that we're going to start being a little bit more active on, but you'll be able to still follow us on at Adzuki or at Juniper Dreams. Or is it, no?
Juniper Dreamy.
Yes. Juniper. I really can't talk tonight. Anyway, so you'll find the episodes on any platform, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play. I'm still waiting on word from Spotify, but we're on Stitcher. There's a couple of other ones that we're on. You can find links to subscribe to all of those.
Are you sure we're on Stitcher?
Yes, we are on Stitcher, and we are on SoundCloud. Wait, what? No?
You said it twice in a row.
Did I say Stitcher twice?
I'm just giving you a hard time.
But if you go to adzuki.com, if that's not where you're listening to it right now, there's links for every episode where you can find them. You can, whichever one you prefer, you can go in and click subscribe. Also, if you guys can start leaving some reviews on the whatever platform you're using, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, leave reviews because the reviews really start boosting the level of where we're at, so that way we can get to a larger audience, and then
more
postables, so that way we can say, hey, Hallmark, look, we're all here.
There's lots of us.
There's
we
lots
want
of us.
more.
Yes, and we want more people to discuss. So, again, but you can follow us on Twitter. I think we're going to be putting together. No, actually, we're not going to be doing a Facebook group or page for the show. I think we're just going to integrate that with all the existing pages, cut down a little bit on the clutter. But also, just want to throw in a quick plug for our second show that we're going to be doing that's going to be focusing on Christmas movies and music, as well as maybe the occasional recipe or two. And
Happy Bubble.
Happy Bubble, whatever fun antics we can get into. Maybe I'll even throw the video of me trying to snowboard down our front yard at our old house and crashing and burning with a GoPro.
And wait, are we not supposed to say anything about
Not yet.
that?
We'll talk about that as we get closer. We have a nice little gift from our family to share with everyone a little bit later on. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will watch
Or watching.
Or watching. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel here, and also share the episodes with your family and friends, especially if you've inducted them into the show. Let them know that there is, now a podcast that goes along with it as well. So thank you guys again, and we will.
Do you want to say thank you one more time?
I'll say thank you as many times because I'm so. We're close to Thanksgiving. It's officially October 1st. So.
I need to go to bed.
Yeah, we're done. So we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.